as in, it's there's something about the first book that doesn't resonate with the second book. So it's not necessarily that the first book is bad. It's that the first book doesn't, like, lean you into the second book. So people just read the first book, and sometimes they may not even think that there is a second book. At least that's where I'm coming from. What does it mean for a book to fail? Not sell 10,000 copies. If you don't sell 10,000 copies, your book failed. Like, if that was your goal of the book, right? Because you gotta think about it in terms of goal, right? Like, I don't give a shit if I sell any books. I just want to write them. I just want them to exist, to be there and have something. But I literally consider it a success if I even write the first draft of the book. I was doing both Be the Music and the Fish one at once, and then I started exercising almost every day, and I'm just more motivated to do that. I guess I lost my reason for writing, and now I'm looking for a new one. Feel like the first books might be enough of a complete story. The first Hunger Games book is an example. I think the escalation of the premise is what sold the second book. Yeah, because, I mean, I look at series that are like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 books, and I'm like, no thanks. I want a trilogy. I want, like, 4 books. I want, like, 2 books. You know, I don't want a 22... Unless it's, like so fucking good. It's like fucking Game of Thrones or fucking something like that, where it's like, okay, I can understand how it could be this long, but it's like most of the 10-book series I've read could have been done in like 4 books. But there's just like that, and then there's that one book that the entire book is just a fucking lore dump of some kind. Like Leviathan Wakes, The Expanse does that. Like book 6 is an entire exposition book. Magic Treehouse. True, 50 books is fine if you can hop in anywhere. That's another thing, Levi, is does it matter? Do you have to read the first book to get the second book as well, right? So there's a lot of nuance to that, but let's see what he thinks, Mr. Editor.
So many authors come to me and they say, like, hey, I have this...
Cough, Warhammer 40k. Yeah. Legit. Because it comes at so many different timelines and so many different directions from so many different plot points that it's like, you do not need to know fucking everything. You can just have small tidbits and you'll still get it, right? Even with, as long as you have like the understanding of the religious fanaticism that's attached, basically to servitude. That enables people to, through that line of thought, essentially, like, push people to the limit of their, both bodies and minds, if you look at Dreadnoughts as well. Notes on failed series. Alright, let's do it. Here we go.
Incredible vision of a book series I want to write, which is awesome. And so my goal in this video is help authors who have that kind of ambition to avoid some of the most common mistakes that I see as an editor. We're going to look at the 8 most common mistakes that authors make when trying to write a book series, and then I'm going to give you very practical advice on how you can sidestep those mistakes. Let's start with number 1, repetitive
plot patterns. Just thinking, what do we have that are repetitive plot patterns? One thing I can think of is like being on the wrong side. This happens like 3 or 4 times where you're like, oh shit, we're on the wrong side of this. May I share a video? Yes, you may, Callie. What is it? Post the link, bro. When a character has to relearn the same lesson over and over, hate that. My other series that I want to do, Wombat, is like a sci-fi series that humanity basically leaves Earth, but it leaves like all of the technology behind, and it's still got like, like satellites and antennas and stuff like that sending signals back. And eventually, over the millennia, a new human species or another intelligent species evolves on the planet. And as they're, going through their thing, there's like random people that are basically like crazy people that say they hear voices in their head. And these are like the geniuses that change the entire concept of reality. And what's actually happening is their brains have developed a way of picking up basically the Wi-Fi signal from the far-off human civilization. So they just get like random information in their head over periods of time. And it's like some of them, if they're smart enough, can like translate it. And they start building technology and like making things based upon this information that's in their head. And slowly this becomes rampant throughout the entirety of the society until everyone is hearing these voices. And eventually, they discover technology and they send themselves out into the universe to try and find their long-lost ancestors. Wait, I hear voices. I'm one of them! True, Callie. But it's based on the idea that over a period of time, if your body is subjected to something, it will develop a way to interact with that. Same way we developed eyes to interact with light, same way we developed ears to interact with sound. You ever watch Cowboy Bebop? There's an episode where a derelict satellite starts doing its own shit after being abandoned for so long. Yup, I fucking love Cowboy Bebop, bro. This shit is great. And a similar idea once future Earth, after humanity is gone, the Voyager 1 ends up looping back to there somehow, and they try to decode the golden record. Conflict comes from the main religion of the world, explicitly stating that aliens aren't real, which ironically is true here. I had a draft of the first 2 chapters of the book a couple of years ago. People there are like bird people. Nice! That's fucking epic.
Plot patterns. So the structure that worked for the first book in the series often is not the structure that's going to work for book 2 or book 3.
Okay. So structure for book 1 may not be a good structure for book 2 or 3. So we have structure.
See frequently is that authors want to repeat. They think, oh, this is what worked for book 1, this is what I feel most comfortable with, let's just do that again. If you're not writing an episodic series, which is basically where the whole storyline resets at the beginning of every single book, but you are writing more of an ongoing plot that's going to develop through the series, then these are the points you need to know.
See, my biggest thing is like, I feel like planning books is just a bad idea. I think you should just write out the story, and however long the story happens to be is how long the story needs to be. For the Wind, Rolling used the same plot structure for all but the last Harry Potter book. Oh, it's not that. It's like one of those things, right, where it's like, it's a rule, but my thing is understanding why a rule exists and understanding the rule itself. Once you understand those two things, you can break that rule because you know why it exists and why it's there and what it's meant to like protect and stop. But planning books is sensible if you want a steady output, like if it's your job. Yeah. But I just mean, like, you before you even have the idea, you're like, oh, I'm going to write 5 books. It's like, how can you know that you're going to write 5 books if you don't even have the idea yet? Because then it's like, oh, are you truncating the idea to fit the 5 books? Are you extending the idea to fit the 5 books? I think that's just a bad place to start, let's say.
The first tip I have is to escalate.
Yeah, escalate. That's what we do. Sinister! Hello, I'm here. Welcome, Sinister. How's it going, good sir? Welcome, welcome. Escalate. Oh, this is what you were talking about for the Hunger Games, like the escalation of the plot is like the bringing to the next book, right? And that's kind of where mine is, because the end of the first book is them confronting the Monarch and getting their fucking asses handed to them, and Fafnir basically being wiped off the map, and they're like, oh shit, okay, this is going to be a little bit more complicated than we think. And then they have to go through the process of finding the octopi, finding the rest of the dragons, putting together the diamond weapon, unlocking all of the past, unveiling why the Warriors of Light are the Warriors of Light, what the tablet says, and the past and the history of the world. Like, the entirety of the second book is almost all, like, exposition, lore dump, and discovery. Because that's the part of the series where all you're doing is finding out what...
Oh, there it goes. That's the face only a mother.
Damn, that's fun to do. Kind of late, but I'm here nonetheless. Hell yeah. I feel like stories can arbitrarily expand or contract. Contracting removes nuance, but distills the themes to a higher concentration. Expanding gives more room for nuance and character arcs, but at the cost of an increased risk of quality dips. True. And the whole point of the second book is, like, the first book sets up the... and like, provides the questions, right? But you don't learn any answers in the first book. You learn all of the answers in the second book. So that's kind of the structure difference, where the entire first book is discovery, and the entire second book is payoff. You're like, hey, I finally get to know why these things are the way they are. Why is the world the way that it is? What happened? You know, that kind of thing.
Let's look at the Hunger Games for an example of this. The first book is very much about personal survival, right? Winning the games and not dying. But what are books 2 and 3 about? Books 2 and 3 get much more into a political message of, like, a wide-scale rebellion against the authorities. This is a clear escalation from personal survival into overthrowing the government. The second
Ours is kind of opposite in that way, because there's a lot of political stuff in the first book, but all of that kind of falls apart in the second book because there's really no governmental structure anymore. It's like the Monarch has now become an iron claw around the people in the tree because of how fanatical they are, and the fact that he kicked out all the adventurers, there's no one to go against it. Like, you could take the story of the Three Little Pigs and make it a good 5-book series out of it if you really wanted to. Yep. It's all about how you want to tell the story, right? So, expand the genre. And that kind of goes, the first world's all about magic, and then the first book's all about magic, but the second book is the combination between magic and technology. So you kind of hit this almost sci-fi fantasy mix, but it's more of just like the Final Fantasy type, technological past with a magic present. So escalate. So, like, let's say that first book is political turnings with side changes through reveals, showing characters are not on the good side. Book 2, all about finding answers for the world, solving problems needed to end the conflict. Book 2 also increases the stakes by introducing the celestial beings, Gaia and Anima. then expand the genre. Book 1 is primarily magic with limited technology. Book 2 is extremely technological with magic underlying. So there's definitely a shift in attention for what the main like theme and plot and point of the first versus the second book. So I definitely feel that we don't have that repetition there.
Do in your series is to expand the genre. And for an example of this, let's look at Maze Runner. Book 1 is very much the mystery genre. They are in a contained environment. They wonder why they are there. They wonder what the maze is there for. It's a very self-contained story. But books 2 and 3, as they get out of that maze, the genre expands into this post-apocalyptic storyline with cranks, who are basically zombies. It also expands into kind of a dystopian genre where they are wondering what's the ethics of testing on children in order to cure a disease. I know I've said before in other videos that you don't want to change genres within a single book, like from the beginning to the end, but I think you have a little bit more latitude.
Okay, I'm glad he said that.
And you can expand the genre a little bit, not change it wholesale.
Yeah, but just add a little bit. And we've already gotten like on the Siege of Garuda, when you're seeing helicopters, planes, jets, bombs, tanks, and all that, and like mechs and shit, and you're just like, wait, where did the technology come from? It's just so confusing. But that's because those are the octopi that are on the bottom of the ocean from the past, and they have technology, but they don't have magic.
Technique that you can use when moving from book 1 into the rest of your series.
I didn't really like how Maze Runner turned zombie. I liked the first and third book, and then the second prequel, but wasn't really a fan of the second or the first prequel. I never really read them. I only kind of watched the first and second movies, but I was like, yeah, this is kind of like lame. I don't know. Just doesn't hit my fancy. What I'd really like them to do, I wonder if I'm just retarded. Hold on a second. Okay, they actually did do it. When did they do it? What year? And was it any good? 2007. The Dresden Files. Fucking amazing series. So fucking cool. Also, Maze Runner isn't a mystery. It's a survival book. It's Lord of the Flies, but with older kids. Yeah. Wait, you didn't know there's a book series for the Dresden Files?
Ahem. It's not nice to say retweeted. Bows for a perfect child acting scene.
Dresden Files. It's about a man named Harry Dresden, and he's like, basically, he is like almost an exiled magician, and it's kind of like the idea of like Harry Potter, where there's the mix between like non-magical society and magical society. It's set in London. It's very much like magic interferes with technology and stuff, and basically his master was preparing to like raising him to sacrifice him in like this dark ritual, and he wound up killing his master, and like it's super like not his fault. He did it in self-defense, but he still got like his title of like magician like stripped away, so he has what's called the Sword of Damocles hanging over his head. Wait, Maze Runner was a real series? Lauren Zodabos? Welcome. How's it going, bro? I always thought it didn't exist. No, it was a real thing. I like peripherally aware. I'm like peripherally aware of it, and from the show, yeah. But no, the Dresden Files are so fucking good. They're so dark. They're so fucked up, and they do such a good job with the psychological side of like, because he's literally a detective, but like he's in between the magical and normal world. But yeah, such a good series. So well in depth, so well told, so well world building. Absolutely loved it. And okay, so go Panoramic. Does this mean like if you, let's say if the first part of the book is set inside of the tree and the inside of the mountain range that's on the outside of the volcano, then the second book would take place on a larger scope. Or in this case, it would be the first book takes place on the entire first continent. The second book takes place underneath the tree at the bottom of the ocean and on the other side of the world where like the Dark Adventurers Guild is, where basically they've gotten like ships and stuff like that, like boats, and they've tethered like thousands of boats together and like docks and stuff like that and barges to create like their own tiny little like basically Tortuga out on the ocean to stay away from the actual civilization. And I don't know if you'll actually go there, but that's something that will be mentioned. Because it's probably going to be one of those far-off vistas that you never see, but it's just talked about. Because I absolutely love that idea. Because in the Hearthstone series, basically... And this is where I got the idea for how I use my magic system. Because it was like these, like basically pirates that live out on the ocean. They have duels, but the way that the duels work is it's a combination between rapier fighting, like fencing, and poetry. And it's like, you can lose if you kill your opponent without basically humiliating them. And it's like this super balanced nuance between making fun, humiliating, and trying to kill your opponent. But you want to humiliate them publicly before you kill them. And that's like the ultimate victory kind of thing. Maze Runner TLDR, zombie virus that's asymptomatic for a long time. Some kids immune to it. Scientists run tests on kid brains to figure out why immune. They are put in Maze Society to test brains. Test is successful, but humanity is too dead by now for it to make much of a difference. Also, there is a drug that can take that cures zombie virus, but lobotomizes you and stuff. I love the Dragon Riders of Pern series, because despite how large the series it is, you can pick up any of the mainline books, and it's perfectly sensible. Then there's a mini-series on the side with 4 books that's amazing. Nice.
Is to go panoramic. For this example, we're actually going to look at
That's a Brandon Sanderson one?
television, specifically the series The Wire. It has 5 different seasons, but each one takes a different view on the city of Baltimore. First season is about the drug
And McCaffrey. Book 1, Tree and Main Continent. Book 2, Ocean Floor, Inner Planet, Domed City. Jesus. Alright. To expand the scope of the world over the period of the books to create more of a escalation feeling of you're not just living in the same place anymore, right? You've gone from like city to country kind of idea. Something that's not fair is that because my middle brother is named Brandon, I'm instantly leery of reading anything written by a Brandon. Ooh, I've never written it. I've never read any Brandon Sanderson stuff, but that's because I haven't read in like 15 years. And now I just don't have the fucking time for it. It's like I'm trying to go out of my way to like read and like promote people on like Royal Road and stuff like that. So that's where most of my reading is coming from, and like in Discord, on Reddit and stuff like that, right? Trying to just put myself out there as much as possible to figure out what's going on with it.
trade. Then we look at the docks in season 2. We look at City Hall, meaning politics, in season 3. We look at the school system or education in season 4. And in season 5, we look at the city through journalism, through the lens of media. So think of ways you can use this structure in your series. You can use a different character as the
let's say, different perspectives of life, school, journalism, media, police, emergency, what's another one? Politics, conflict between cities, civil fights, people versus government. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do with that.
In each book of the series, you could imitate The Wire and choose a centralized place and then look at that place through different lenses and different characters. Now let's move on to the next point, which is the mistake I see most often with writers. So if you...
What do you think of Cowboys versus Aliens? I won't say it wasn't a fun watch, but as a story, I wouldn't have ever gone there. I've never heard of Cowboys versus Aliens. But the one that I do like the most, that I was so skeptical of until I saw it on TV, was... It's such a fucking good movie. It's so ridiculous, but it's so fucking good. Really don't like when a second book changes POV. Like, we spend all the first book getting to know the protagonist, and suddenly we're in someone else's shoes. Rick Riordan famously did this in his second series. Percy doesn't show up until the second book, and none of the characters in the first book are in the second book, and vice versa. Still good book, Simo, though. Yeah, the entire book is in first-person perspective from the main character, Husai. So it keeps everything kind of grounded, and it makes me, like, I don't know how to play with time with this. We'll have to figure that out later, because I do kind of want it to be linear. But there is a lot of could-dos with that, right? Like, I don't want to do, like, flashbacks and shit like that. Like, I don't know. We'll see how the story goes, but it's one of those things where I want to do, like, the Quentin Tarantino thing where you remove that one scene. And then, like, 90% of the way through the book, you show that one scene that happened at the beginning. And you're like, oh! That's why! And then that allows the conclusion to be sped through. And my favorite example of that is in The Hateful Eight. Like, at the very end, before everything goes down, they show exactly what happened at the haberdashery before, fuck, what was her name? Before they show up, basically. In my experience, dreams remembering the past are a good way of doing nonlinear stuff when needed for foreshadowing or thematic placing. Yeah, and one of the things is that Wombat, what I want to do is I want to make it seem like the character is talking to the reader.
Wellness check is your version of take a chill pill, huh?
I forgot about that. I'm like, what was I doing? I just lost track because I'm so fucking high. But I'm like, yeah, I guess I should take a toke. Basically, Husai will be talking to the reader, but he's actually not talking to the reader, but you don't find that out until the second book. So you think he's talking to you, but then you find out he's actually talking to Gaia. And that's why it kind of feels like there's a conversation going on. Like, when he asks a question, he almost gets an answer. And that's the main reason for him being human, is because his mind can take a little bit more pressure from Gaia. So it's more of it's not just an instinctual presence, it's an actual presence in his head. I haven't read them since I was like 12, so maybe my tastes were worse back then. I remember them fondly, though. That's all that matters, really, is that you remember them fondly, right? Because you're not going to remember the individual bits of the book, but you're going to remember the impression that the book gave you. And nostalgia is super fucking powerful. The second set of books in the Percy Jackson series was pretty bad. My friend who's autistic, special interest, was the series... didn't even blame me for dropping it there. Yeah. I've never read them because I didn't know what they were, and then when I found out what they were, I was too old to really be into it. I was like, because I love mythology and stuff like that, and it's like mythology in modern day, right? It's like 14, so my taste might have been more refined. I've always been pretty cynical, though, so I could be too harsh. True, Levi. This is where I was saying something, but I can't remember what it was. I was kind of mad on the series. I won't say Percy Jackson isn't good, but it's not great by any stretch. I think it could have been done much better. True, Callie. True. Pump up the jam. Pump up the jam, bro. Pump up the jam. Let's fucking go.
If you get nothing else from this video, please listen to what I'm about to say. Mistake number 2 is that writers wait.
Ooh. Yeah, okay. But is that really true? I think the death of Zayd and the revealing of the monarch and the exile of the Adventurers Guild is delivering the goods, but we'll see where it goes from here. Pump up the jam emote, a bicycle pump attached to a jam jar. Dude, I could actually do that. To give advice, he just wants his favorite author to release Winds of Winter. To deliver the goods.
Until book 2 to deliver the goods. Sometimes when I'm delivering feedback on the first book in a series, I'll say, look, these are 5 things that you really need inside this book. And they come back to me.
This is synopsis with the first book wasn't a complete story on its own. Oh, this is synonymous, sorry. With the first book wasn't a complete story on its own. Let's go through and let's see if my first book is a complete story. Husai finds out he might be being blackmailed. The entire political structure is falling apart and the Beastman War starts. Husai and the Viceroy leave the tree in order to basically audit what the world looks like right now and, like, see what their choices basically are. They go around investigating Beastman villages to find out that all the Beastman villages have been ransacked. They find one of the character's Beastman friends, who's basically been, like, he was, like, the chief of a village, and now he's, like, basically in prison. And then they find out that there's a massive army headed toward Garuda. And there's a lot of conversation about why the fuck would the Beastmen attack Garuda, and on the way to Garuda, because it's, like, it'd basically be like a third world country going up against the United States military. Like, There's no way the Beastmen, with their limited understanding of magic, their inner squabbling between themselves, sure they have, like, insane numbers, but there's no way they get that many Beastmen together. And this is where, like, conspiracy theories and stuff like that come into play, because one of the conspiracy theories is that in the background, there's another race that's controlling the Beastmen, and this is the reason why the Beastmen have such high levels of society. Like, they're not intelligent enough to have created, like, their own small communities. Like, and the fact that all their communities are somewhat structured in the same way gives this vibe to people that there's something going on in the background. And this is the real deal for it, that it's actually the dragons in the background that are not just controlling the Beastmen, but they're what the Beastmen worship, essentially. So they're the Beastmen gods, and they haven't been seen for 600 years, so now that the Beastmen's gods are back, they're finally falling into place. And then with the dragon and the octopi, Garuda gets completely fucking annihilated. So you go into this being like, oh, this is going to be a clean sweep from the main heroes, to being like, holy shit, we have to run the fuck away, what the fuck is going on? And then, because all of the, like, dungeons in the world are actually sky cities from the past that crashed into the ground, and the reason why they have, like, mechanical defense mechanisms and stuff like that is because of technology. So it's like Machina versus, like, the animals and monsters that inhabited the area after the fall. As well as, on their way back to the tree, this is where news of the fall of Garuda reaches the tree, and the monarch has to make the decision of, does he go with the people or does he go against the people? Because the people want to kick the adventurers out of the tree. So he says, fuck it, kick all adventurers out of the tree, but Zaid won't leave, so he winds up killing Zaid, which reveals him as the bad guy, completely destroys Husai, and then exile the adventurers. They have to go do the 100-year quest, find Atomus, confront Fafnir, light Atomus, and then finally confront the monarch. And that's basically the entire storyline of the first book. With Harry Potter, if you didn't know anything, you could believe that the first story movie was all there was and been satisfied, I think. Only knowing other details doesn't clearly mean the story isn't over. However, I think from the second book onward, you know it's not over, and each ending no longer feels like an ending. So it's somewhat surprising that the other books and movies remained popular. I just think the premise was good. I think the premise just resonated with people really well. It felt like this could be a world of its own, hidden inside of our own, which is super powerful for kids. It was structured in a way that it grew up with you. If you read it at the time, it grew up with you. And I think that was probably one of the strongest points to it, is you start as 14-year-olds and you end as, like, 21-year-olds. And it goes from, like... It's almost like the entire series goes through puberty. And I think that resonates really well with at the time. And I think that's why it was a lot more popular at the time than it is now. And that's because there's a lot of other stuff. But it's like, you know, reading the books as they came out as you grew up. What are the victories for the protagonist in your first book? The victories are finding the Warriors of Light, which is what he's tasked with in the beginning. Finding the tablet that's with the Warriors of Light that describes why the world is the way that it is. Completing the 100-year quest that's never been completed before. What else is there? Oh, gathering everyone together that he, like, all of his old friends. Bringing all of his old friends together and basically reminiscing on his old days. Plus falling in love with Hildebrandt, maybe. So there are quite a bit of victories. But they're more internal, personal victories to the protagonist than they are overarching battles won. Unless you're counting, like, the fight for Atomus and 100-year quest. They left Voldemort's resurrection ambiguous, and you had to wait until Order of the Phoenix to find out. That'd be failing to deliver goods. Yeah, I definitely feel that, Levi. That's why it's like figuring out that why Husai was given the Calm Pearl. That's the one thing you never, ever, ever find out. Do you guys think that's a good idea or a bad idea? Because at the moment, I think that's my most controversial idea in the book, is not ever actually stating who gave the Calm Pearl to Husai. Just inferring that it was the monarch. And maybe putting in like a tiny, tiny tidbits, but never ever specifically saying anything about it. Premise was great. I'm only saying that each story didn't feel complete at the end. I could definitely feel that because I binged them, Sean. So, like, I binged the books when I was, like, I think up to the 6th book was, like, 2009. when I graduated. I think I read the 6th book and the 7th and 8th book, like, just, like, when they came out afterwards. But I read, like, book 1 to book 6 basically in the same year. And then I never watched any of the movie. Well, I watched the first 2 movies, but I never watched any of the other movies until I watched them all in sequence, like on a marathon on TV. And then, like, 2 or 3 years later, I went back and actually, like, downloaded them and rewatched them all without, like, distractions. And it was like, damn, they actually did a good job, like, closing in on it, right? So I didn't expect how it was going to go like that.
And they say, oh, all 5 of those are in book 2. For one, that's awesome that they have, like, really good narrative instincts. They knew that they needed those things in the story, but they just waited too long to deliver them. The trouble is that no one's gonna read book 2 unless you shift a lot of that juicy material to book 1. So a lot of...
And that's why it's like book 1 is like the Warriors of Light, the tablet, the past, and everything is kind of hinted at but not really seen. The first movie, in my opinion, is the only one they should have made at least the way they did it. Certain characters don't do what they're meant to do, and others are just plain gone. Yeah, but that's the adaptation of the medium, right? Same with, like, the remake that they're making. Any victories in the context of the overarching plot. Any victories that are necessary for the bad guys to be stopped by the end of the series. That's the 100-Year Quest, because in the 100-Year Quest is the Emerald Weapon, and inside of Atomus is the Ruby Weapon. And if you take, and inside of the Dome is the Sapphire Weapon. And if you take the Sapphire Weapon, the Emerald Weapon, and Ruby Weapon and combine them together, you create the Diamond Weapon. And the Diamond Weapon is the weapon that the Monarch used to pull out of the sky. And the whole point for confronting the Monarch is the Warriors of Light say, at the end of the first book, if we're ever going to fight the Monarch, we need to use his weapons against him. And that's the Diamond Weapon. So... and obtaining Atomus and allowing Ifrit to light the fire means that now they have a forge that they can make like literal relic armor, which is like Space Marine armor essentially. So they can now make weapons and armor that allow them to completely confront the Monarch, and they can make they can use the weapon that they think is going to be the ultimate trump card on their side. So as far as, like, total necessary things, those are the main 2 points. It's just the fact they don't get enough time to do that. Because there's 2 possibilities. One, Fafnir never lights Atomus. And they have to get another dragon to do it. So that's why they don't have relic weapons in the first time that they confront the Monarch. But the main problem with the first time that they confront the Monarch isn't their gear or anything. It's the fact the Monarch, like, the way that you can travel inside of the crystalline tree is you can literally cause yourself to melt into the consciousness and form, like, basically a ball around you. And it's like, that's how you travel. And then you just, it speeds you through the tree. And what the Monarch does when they confront him and the Viceroy turns to the other side is he brings everyone to the top of the tree. So all of the characters are suffocating because they can't breathe, and they're basically, like, freezing to death because now they're, like, I don't know how high the tree goes up, but they're basically, like, at the top of the atmosphere of the planet. And the Monarch and the Viceroy are sitting there laughing at them as they're basically dying, and then you hear the wings of Fafnir, and he comes crashing down, and then the Monarch starts casting meteors down on top of Fafnir, and Fafnir's trying to fend off the meteors, protecting the main party, scoops up the main party, and as he's dying, he falls off of the tree, clutching the main characters, basically breathing fire on them to bring them back. And then he crashes into the ground, fucking dies, and the roots come out and wrap around him, pull them into the dome. There's also the chance that the Warriors of Light reveal themselves, put on their relic armor, and help Fafnir. So it's like, they kind of already know who Fafnir is and everything, and they've got their own little plot side thing, but they just never could reveal who they are because it wasn't the right time, and if the monarch knew who they were, because they're blood related to the monarch, which means they have all of his genetic enhancements, that's the one thing that he might actually fear, is one of his direct descendants being the one that could kill him. But it winds up Gaia can be the only one that kills him, because their plan is to use the diamond weapon to shoot the monarch and the viceroy into space. But because the monarch and the viceroy built the technology of the diamond weapon, they know how to counteract the tractor beam. So the shield that the monarch has around him isn't actually magical, like everyone thinks, it's technological. Because they don't know the true connection between the monarch. They don't know this is the same monarch. They just think it's the monarch. It's just the bloodline. But no, it's actually literally the same person that's been alive for 10,000 years. And that's like one of the biggest twists, is finding out that the monarch is actually anima. And it's not a progression of different people. It's been the same person the entire time, pretending to be different people.
A lot of writers, because they have such an expansive story in their brain of what this whole series is, they
Yeah, that's why I could talk for 45 minutes.
Focusing on things like
just for one thing.
Focusing on things like warming up.
World building, warming up, what else?
Focusing on things like character building. And it's like, no. We need to get to the juicy plot right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Check out this advice.
That's why the very first thing that happens is the Calm Pearl. And you know immediately how battle mechanics work and everything. You know there is something out there that needs to be accomplished, the 100-year quest. And you know that someone's trying to frame Husai for killing these people and preventing this information from being spread. And Husai knows it wasn't him who did it. At least he doesn't think that it was him that did it. Unless he's crazy and he blacked out at some point in time. But he's also going to talk to Sid about, hey, have I ever been outside of the tree? Have you ever seen me leave for an extended period of time past the time we came back from being head of the... voted in as Master of the Adventurers Guild, as well as... the last party or alliance to go through the 100-year quest. And, you know, as they're talking, they're kind of... And the main thing that Sid shows is... Like, this is how I want the scene to be. Because Husai is huge. All the other octopi are, like, 5'8". He's, like, 6'3". Like, there's never been an octopi that's, like, the size of him. So, Sid, looking at the Calm Pearl, and looking at the scene, seeing Torg and this character beside each other, he looks at Husai and says... How tall are you? Husai's like, 6'3". And Sid's like, okay, well, how tall is Torg? And he's like, I don't know, like, 5'7"? And then Sid's like, why is Torg looking down at you? And it's like just that single line to say that it's not possible that that person is Husai. As well as the idea that Husai sees himself as a human, but other people see him as an octopi. So these two clashes of illusion magic isn't real and you can't figure out how to do it, versus proof that illusion magic exists. And that's kind of building off the bat the duality of basically everything. That everything has this contradictory aspect to it. That you can only truly overcome that when you understand the fundamental basis of both sides of the coin. And you can't have one without having the other. But on a surface level, they seem to clash with each other. Ad break! Okay. Plot progression. Steering plot in correct direction. Events of the inciting incident lead into more events. A good clue always leads to another clue. Boom.
It's from Annie Dillard, who is one of my favorite writers. Pilgrim at Tinker Creek is the book that made me want to become a writer. She writes so beautifully and she is so wise. Check out this advice she gives. One of the things I know about writing is this: spend it all, shoot it, play it, lose it, all right away, every time. Do not hoard what seems good for a later place in the book or for another book. Give it all, give it now.
True.
Annie, I love you. Such good advice. Really, really good advice. Please don't save it for later. If you can think of it, put it in this book. There will always be more stuff that you can make up later. But if you have something good, put it in book one. And hey, if you want a more structured series of videos that escalate and talk about a single topic, I would recommend that you check out my Bookfox Academy, where I have 10 different courses that help writers with all sorts of different topics. I also have PDFs, so that'll help you visualize the information, and quizzes, just so you can test your knowledge. There is a link in the description below. I'm telling the truth. Check it out and click on it. The third mistake we're gonna focus on when writing a series is overstretching your premise.
Okay. Overstretching your premise.
The Hobbit was not a trilogy. It was a single book. And
yeah. Stretching the story beyond need.
not even that long of a book. It should never have been adapted into 3 movies. That was just sheer greed on behalf of Hollywood. It should have been 1 movie and not maybe the cartoon version from the 1980s, but a single live action movie. So when you don't have enough source material, what do? Well, you end up throwing in stuff that doesn't work as well. There was also this forced expansion into romantic subplots between Tariel and Keely. And also what were really minor scenes in the actual book were expanded to these gigantic action sequences, like the orc battles, like Gandalf's quest, like orcs pursuing them. So the question I have for you is, do you have enough story material for a series? Because if you don't, I mean, there's nothing wrong with writing just a single book.
That's my problem. I wanted to write a single book, but it seems like it's just way too much for 1 book. Sad.
It might be a longer book, but don't throw in extra fodder just to pad your storyline so you can get more books in the series. Now, on the other hand, I should say that a lot of writers have the opposite problem, is that their creativity is far too expansive. And their problem is the inability.
This is the story. This is what's going to be in the book. But still, I love having it in my head and knowing it and just living it, right?
Ability to control and to manage the premise's growth. I'm sure you're thinking about it already, but George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, he hasn't finished that series. And you know what? He's probably going to die before he finishes that series because he had so much material he couldn't finish it. And HBO sort of, told the rest of his storyline, so he kind of doesn't have to finish it maybe in his mind. But my point is that when you have hundreds of characters...
No, I'm pretty sure he'd laugh his fucking ass off at their ending. Like, his ending is gonna be fucking amazing. That's even if he dies and it's like a Frank Herbert situation where someone else finishes the book, he most likely has all of the information written down just in case. To be like, yeah, this is how it's actually supposed to end, this is what it's supposed to be, this is supposed to be the reveal, and the bad guys are supposed to win because that's what the entire series is building up to. Like, I would be extremely disappointed if the Night Lord didn't win. If Darkness and Ice covered the entire planet, or at least all of Westeros, and maybe inched its way towards Essos, just destroy the entire fucking planet. I think that's like basically the only way to end it.
characters and hundreds of subplots, it becomes very difficult to provide closure for all of that. For you authors who struggle with this, I love that you're so good at generation and creativity. What you have to work on is being just as good at closure, because you don't want to be known as the J.J. Abrams who writes great beginnings but can't write an ending. This fourth mistake is a really tricky
That's why I always write the ending first, and I always want everyone's opinion on my ending. Is my ending a cop-out? That's always been the biggest question on my mind. Is my ending a cop-out? Oh, everyone dies, the planet blows up, and you don't want to be multi-millionaire director J.J. Abrams. I just think he means you don't want to pull off the same stunt. You want to be able to deliver an ending. To me, the ending is the most important part. And it's the only part that matters because it's usually the only part I remember.
And it's probably the one I get asked about the most when I'm talking to authors about series. It is number 4, not enough closure in book.
Not enough closure in book 1. So let's go through a list and let's say like the main questions that we ask in the first book. So questions we ask in book 1. What/where is the moon? Where did the tree come from? Why are there only beastmen outside the tree? Who are the warriors of light? What happened 600 years ago that there is no history for? Why is Fafnir bringing the beastmen to war against the tree? Okay. I wrote the ending first for my Cutthroat University story. The protagonist, whose poor hometown raised money for years to send him to that school, hoping that if he graduated he could help dig the town out of poverty, says, "Naive idiot, sending me here was a terrible financial decision. Why should I reward that now that I've graduated? Positive reinforcement for bad choices would be the cruelest thing I could ever do to them." He never goes back to the town. That's fucking awesome, Wombat. Now that is a powerful fucking ending. I love that. That is so good. It makes complete sense, too. It's like, idiots, why the hell would you do that? Why would you expect that? You guys are obviously retarded. You could have, like, spent all that money to fix up the town. Why didn't you do that? Why did you take such a massive gamble? Like, what the fuck? You want me to entrust you with my now success? Fuck that! Thanks, bye-bye! Okay, so we do not answer where is and what is the moon. We do not answer where the tree came from. We do answer why there's only beastmen outside of the tree. We do answer who are the warriors of light. we don't answer 600 years ago for the history. And we do answer why Fafnir is bringing the Beastmen to war against the tree. So out of, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions, we answer 1, 2, 3. So we answer 3 out of the 7 questions that we ask. Is that enough? Writing the ending first is a really solid method for writing strategies. Yeah, because it gives, like, for me, it's just now I have a direction, right? And my biggest problem with writing is this. It's like, okay, yeah, you start, what the fuck did you, why did, huh? What? I'm so, where are you even going? I don't understand. Why would you even do that? That doesn't make any sense. Whereas if I have a direction, the ending, a destination, I can plot a pretty straight line towards it and keep everything like continuity. Discovery, writer, moment. Yup. But yeah, so we answer half of the questions. And we technically could answer more questions. We could answer all of these questions. But we answer all of these questions at the beginning of the second book. So, I don't know, does that seem like it gives enough closure? And it's like, even for things that, like, we introduced the 100-year quest at the beginning, we're going to solve the 100-year quest. So that's, boom, that's a plot line closed right there. After awakening the Sky Cities, we're going to learn what the actual Sky Cities are and why they're the way that they are. Same with, like, the genetic engineering for the avian and the insectoids. I guess that would be another thing, too, is, like, why are the octopi, avian, and insectoids so different from beastmen on intellectual levels? Do answer. So there, we answer half of them now. And those are just ones I can think of, right? What I'd recommend, when you get the chance, open up MS Paint and draw your plot arc, including subplots, as they move up and down. Very easy to see where you separate into multiple books once you have that chart, IMO, and notably iterate on the chart over time. Yeah, I just have that in my head. That's my biggest problem, is most of the stuff is just in my head. And it's like, yeah, I could graph it out, but I feel like at this time, that's almost like a waste to do, because I still have a lot of learning to do before I get to the point of actually wanting to start to write it. Like, we're like 4 to 5 months still away from me feeling confident enough. So we'll probably even finish the first like 10 or 15 chapters of Duart's Adventure before, and that'll like develop more areas and more lore and more grounding for how the world actually is. And then we can manipulate that and expand that for over 150 years into the future, right? But I definitely think we give enough closure in book
Number one. So when you're writing book number 1, there is a tension between it being a standalone book and part of a longer story. And the mistake that a lot of authors make is they lean too far toward the direction of making it part of a larger story, which means it doesn't feel satisfying enough as a standalone book. And there are 2 mistakes that authors make with the ending of book number 1. The first one is a cliffhanger ending. And nothing wrong with a cliffhanger ending, but it can be too cliffhangery, and let me explain what I mean by that.
Okay, is it a cliffhanger that we swap, the Viceroy turns out to be bad and he goes on the Monarch side, Fafnir dies, and the Warriors of Light are revealed, and all of the characters get pulled towards the dome. So the actual ending of the last chapter isn't necessarily the conflict with the Monarch, it's the aftermath of going down into the city and everyone being like, what the fuck just happened? How did our plan get so fucked up? And it's like, I imagine the ending of the book would be like ending in the middle of the fight at the council of the ring, where everyone's getting angry, like right before Frodo stands up and says, I'll take the ring. Imagine if the book just ended there. Do not let the ineptness stop you from getting a first draft. You will learn more by writing all the stuff badly, which you can then use to rewrite it better. We do this method in game dev a lot. It's called making a dirty build. Yeah. Just the problem is, Wombat, I did the first chapter and I immediately knew things that I needed to learn. And that's why I have a list of things that I'm, like, working on. And once I'm confident in those, then I'm like, okay. Because my biggest problem is, because I write so many short stories, it's connecting two stories together. So making sure that chapter 1 and chapter 2 feel like they're the same story. Because they're so wildly different in their approach. Like, the first 3 chapters are so ridiculously standalone, it makes me almost want to reconsider how the entire section goes. Because the first chapter is the Calm Pearl and learning about the 100-Year Quest. The second chapter is the inauguration of the Viceroy, and the Viceroy basically stating that beastmen are equal with avians and insectoids, which causes a riot, which fucks basically everything up. And then the third chapter is Husai going to the roots and talking to what he thinks is his ancestors, which is actually Gaia, and getting the prophecy of finding the Warriors of Light and the tablet that they hold, and getting information in order to figure out why the world is the way that it is. Good. You write stories. Was worried you were just learning and not applying that learning directly. If you were, it's way harder to know when you feel confident in those learnings. No, every single short story that we write has a purpose to it. So there is one goal in mind when I write these short stories. So they're not necessarily the greatest because they're all focusing specifically on one type of aspect. So, for instance, the story that we're doing right now, which is Duart's Adventure, the entire point of the story is to make our characters, apply the character profile to our character to make it so that our character is consistent throughout the story. Because my biggest problem is writing a single character out of all of my characters. So being able to separate, use different voice, and have individual perspectives from each character, looking at the world from a different view because of their position. If I can do that, then this story is a success. So it's like, I take everything that I learn and I try to apply it in a single way. And that's why most of the last, let's say, 5 reacts we've done were all about characters. Different voice is in text is a challenge too. Yeah. And that's where we're using AI to try to build different voices and see what those look like, and using that as a sample of how to transfer from the original dialogue, which is this is what needs to be said in order to progress the plot, to how would this character say that, and what's the other one? Not just how the character says it, but the viewpoint, like, it has to be filtered through their perspective as well. So it's not just like, what words would they use? What are their mannerisms? What's their reaction? What's their state of mind? How they feel about it? Exactly, right? Like their entire state of being about this conversation, this idea, this perspective, this decision, this goal. And then maintaining that in a very cohesive continuity way that allows you to understand which one. Brandon Sanderson's character lectures tell a lot about that. Yep. But the problem is those are like an hour long. Like, maybe we'll do one of those for the 24-hour stream, and 18 hours of it will be reacting to the lecture. Because usually these are like between 8 to 12-minute videos, and they take like 2 to 3 hours if they include world building. If they include world building and I'm going out of my way to try and explain and put in points as to like fill in the gaps and use examples from my book, it takes a really fucking long time to get through the reacts. So, wait, what? Hold on. What is this? Is this another?
Satisfying enough as a standalone book. And there are two mistakes that authors make with the ending of book number 1. The first one is
the cliffhanger, yeah. Yeah, usually I'm watching the lectures while playing video games and stuff. Yeah, like that'd be something, you know, I'd do on the side and stuff. But it's like, I just don't have time. Like, I don't have time to do what I need to do for the stream, let alone anything else. I'm like so far behind on shit that I need to do. I have like 5 days of videos I need to upload to, I need to like edit and upload to YouTube. I gotta do like 15 or 16 different React, like, photo reels. I gotta change the freaking sound volume on all of the announcements. I gotta, what was the other one that I was thinking? I was thinking of Zoink. I gotta do the wheel. I gotta update a couple of the commands for Kick. Add more stuff to the like channel points thing. Oh, and the other one was I got accepted to Archive of My Own, so I have an Archive of My Own now. So I got to start doing that as well. So there's so many things. I'm like, fuck, man, I just do not have time for all of this. Just try to do one thing a day, and you know, whatever we've got time for, we can just go with it. So cliffhanger ending. Somewhat? Question mark?
Cliffhanger ending. And nothing wrong with a cliffhanger ending, but it can be too cliffhangery, and let me explain what I mean by that. Too cliffhangery ending is kind of abusive toward the reader because it leaves too many things hanging, and the reader's like, you're just making me buy the next book, and they get a little peeved at that. I think your goal, even with the first book into a series, is to resolve a bunch of stuff, perhaps most stuff, and only leave 1 or 2 plot threads open. Now, the second mistake that you can make is a kind of whimper ending. This is usually done by authors who have conceived of their series as being this one long story that they're just happening to break up at random points. So to the reader, this feels more like the end of a chapter than really the end of a book. So how you solve this problem is you really need to think about the end of that book as if you are writing a standalone book. Have the climax, have the resolution, really wrap things up for the writer so that they feel like they're not being cheated. And
because even without the final battle, like learning about the Warriors of Light, the technology, everything in the dome, about the past, like, I mean, I could literally do the lore dump that was going to be at the beginning of the second book, at the end of the first book. It's just the scene that I want to do most of it in. I mean, I could still do the entire anima scene and do all of the other lore dumps, and you don't know anything about Gaia, and you don't know anything about anima, and that's what's introduced into the second book, is the escalation of, we were actually talking now on levels of celestial beings and like outer space and like, you know, things far beyond the consciousness of a single being and the origin of where consciousness comes from, how consciousness is fundamental to reality, why there's good beings and bad beings, how they procreate, moons, why Gaia is so... I guess the way to say it is like, so Gaia creates dragons, Gaia births Moon, dragons worship Moon, beastmen worship dragons, dragons tell beastmen to worship Moon, Monarch pulls Moon out of sky, pisses off Gaia, and all beastmen and dragons. Series has a beginning, middle, and end. Each book has a beginning, middle, and end. Each chapter has a beginning, middle, and end. Yeah. I always try to do that. Like, each chapter is structured. Like, if we go to, let's pull up chapter event lists. This one's huge. The first chapter is fucking massive compared to the rest. But then we get into, like, chapter 2. And this is all, like, hypothetical of the structure of the government and what kinds of things we're going to basically need to present to make the government feel like its full self. So it's like, even with these small little summaries of the small events that happen in each of the chapters, they're very much more driven towards making sure that each chapter has its own standalone idea, right? Like, this is the Discovery, Inauguration, the Requiem. Like, each one takes place in a different area. They have their own identity as a chapter. And even bleeding into the next chapter, it's like, you know, like, for instance, of the end of the Inauguration, because the first one, it's like, Viceroy states he's going to join the Adventurers Guild and go see the world for himself. So, this is the Viceroy meeting Husai for the first time in this point where he's not actually the Viceroy anymore. And it's like, okay, well, let's go into the world. And then Husai's like, well, I gotta figure some shit out. So then he goes, and he learns what he needs to know, and then he tells the Viceroy and second-in-command Varius that they're basically going to go do an audit for the Adventurers Guild. And it's their excuse to go around and figure out what the hell is actually going on in the world. Because they haven't been outside the tree in like 30 years. So they're kind of out of touch with everything. And that leads into, like, actually leaving the tree. So as long as they're all standalone on their own, and they give their own ideas and perspectives and understandings for where the plot is going, then I think that's like, they've accomplished their job, right?
We're talking on the topic of endings. That brings us to point number 5, which is the ending of book 3.
Oh, I see.
Thank you for redeeming chair dance.
Smokey!
dance
What's
for
up,
you.
brother? Welcome,
Please
welcome.
fully enjoy this immersive experience.
How's it going today, bro? True, bro. Oh, there's the ad break.
Keep dancing, bitch, it ain't over yet. You did good, you can
Hell
ask
yeah.
that, babe.
Choke time. We're only like halfway through the video, guys. I'm getting lots of notes, though. Okay. 5. Ending of book 3 is a book ending instead of a series ending. That's another thing. It's like there is potential for having like another prequel and another book. You can't hear me. I doubt that, Smokey. You should be able to hear me fine, brother. I don't believe those lies. You mute yourself, bro? Because I ain't muted, I'll tell you that. But there should be complete and utter closure with everything at the end of the book. Like, you understand everything about the world. You understand everything about the characters. There's nothing left ambiguous or open except for will Gaia win this eternal struggle? Which is completely up to the reader to decide. And that's how the ending is open-ended. It's a celestial fight above the scale of human comprehension. So it is whatever your mind can make of it. But I do feel that is a complete series ending. And I mean, I even completely based it off of a series ending. But could you say that ending to the series was... I mean, again, it's one of those things. If you end a series as if it's not, like for instance with Angel, like, at a moment where you know your characters are going to fucking completely fail, but there might be some miracle that happens that's outside of the scope of reality that you could imagine as the reader, like, oh, the wolf, the ram, and the heart come, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, angels come down and start helping Angel, and, you know, like they could have done something like that with the ending and defeated the wolf, ram, and heart, but it's much better to just, because the wolf, ram, and heart are such grand-scale demonic entities of hell, it's like, really and truly, they are above and beyond the scope of just like celestial beings are. So, you know, actually going up and fighting them isn't viable other than through pure imagination of the person like consuming the content.
Is a book ending instead of a series ending. Now, obviously, if you're not writing a trilogy, it might be book 5 or book 7 or whatever, but I think the point still holds. Your goal with the very last book in your series is to address problems that were present even in book 1. Address problems that span the entirety of your series. Let's go back to Hunger Games for an example. Katniss has been trying to choose between 2 romantic partners for the entire series, Peter the baker and Gale the miner. That tension has been kept up for the whole series. She had to pretend to be in love in Peeta for the sake of survival in the games, but then she would remember the rich childhood that she had with Gale. So her decision about who to choose is not the ending to a book in the series, but it has to be the ending to the entire series. And another example might be Lord of the Rings. At the end of Lord of the Rings, how do we make that feel like a series ending rather than a book ending? One, we have an absolutely massive clash of armies. That's the very dramatic aspect. And then 2, we have the destruction of the ring, which brings that entire arc of that storyline to a close. This next mistake is particularly problematic and particularly pervasive. It is number 6, committing middle book syndrome.
Okay. Committing middle book syndrome.
When you are writing a series, it is natural that some books end up being way stations, sort of connecting the previous book to the next book, but it's not particularly exciting. This often happens in trilogies.
Oh, it's so fucking annoying. Book... Is it book 6? I'm just gonna look and see. Is it book 7 or book 7? Pillars of Creation. Is book 7. Okay. Book 7. Sword of Truth. Pillars of Creation. As well as, I think it's book 5. think it's Babylon's Ashes. But either way, one of the Expanse novels is entirely, it's like entirely based on the entire book is on one of the planets, and it's just like basically exposition about the aliens and stuff like that, or like the gates and the technology that's on the planet. Just the way that the Pillars of Creation kind of explains the holes in the world. Even though you don't need an entire book and an entire character like Jensen to explain the holes in the world. Didn't need to be an entire book.
In book number 2, because book number 1 had this great idea of introducing.
Book 1, introducing world. Book 2.
The world, which is super entertaining. Book number 3 has this great mission of solving all the problems and resolving everything, which is very entertaining. Book number 2, though, ends up being this kind of redheaded stepchild with
what purpose doth you have? That's why we have a 2-book series, not a 3-book series, not a trilogy. It's just 2 books.
not much
The
of
goal.
a task, and there's a lot of wheels spinning going on. Now, obviously, if you're writing a 5-book series or a 7-book series, hey, this could be book number 4, or it could be book number 5. You know, it's flexible, but the point is this is a frequent problem that writers encounter with series. But one technique I'd like to introduce to you is one used by Catching Fire, which is the 2nd book in the Hunger Games series. The technique I want to teach you is one called bridging. And this is where a middle child book is both looking back at the entertainment of the 1st book and then looking forward to the entertainment of the next book. Now, the way that Catching Fire looks back is that it's still using that fun fight to the death formula in an arena with strong social media overtones that was so popular with book number 1. That's still in book number 2. But it's also bridging between the books by looking forward. Book 3 is all about political upheaval and political rebellion, right? So this book is laying all the foundation for politics to get very, very messy and for the rebellion to take form. Really, the middle of your series has enormous potential because it can draw from all the narrative entertainments from the beginning of the series and later on in the series. I'll also say this, that another characteristic of the middle book syndrome is the character carousel. What I see a lot of authors do is they get a little bit stuck in the middle of the series, and so what they do to get out of that is to throw in new characters. Because why not? But that focus on character novelty rather than developing and complexifying the characters you already have really gets you in a jam, because now the next book in the series is going to have to continue all the characters that you threw in book 1, but also the new characters that you developed in book 2. It creates a lot of problems for you later on. So as a
So book 1 is Husai, Varius, Gluttony, all of the leaders of all of the cities. The 4 Warriors of Light. Their 8 Guardians. So the only characters I could think of that would be introduced in the 2nd book. Oh shit! Sean! What's up, good sir? How's it going? Thank you for the subscribbly doo, bud. Super appreciated.
It's touch football! Touch!
I didn't know.
You did. I'm always on Brock's team.
Somebody's in my car.
Right, that is a legitimate superpower.
Seen him do that from another country away. Big deal.
Hell yeah, old school. How's it going? It's going good? Hell yeah, brother. It is, you know, another day. We're talking about book series and why series tend to fail.
very general principle, work on deepening your characters in the middle child series.
Oh, right. And we're thinking, what characters do we add into book 2 would be the octopi at the bottom of the ocean that are the surviving bits. Twi'lek's the twin of Neelix from Star Trek Voyager. Just saw you were streaming. I was just getting ready to go to bed. I'm usually sleeping when you stream. Yeah, I know we got bad stream time, being in the middle of the night and all that. But it is what it is. It's the only time I can, so that's the time I do. Except Thursday is going to be the 24-hour stream. So if you want to pop in sometime on Thursday at some point in time. I get that often, but it's just a random name I made up when making a character on WoW. Very, very, very nice. Trying to remember what the hell was the. It's just making me remember a Voyager. What was it when Tuvix, when Tuvok and Neelix get combined together in a transport incident? Good old Star Trek. See, I don't think we throw in new characters. Oh, the dragons. We throw in the dragons in book 2, but like they're not like extremely important. For sure, I'm on. If I'm on, what time are you starting on Thursday? Same time, so it'll be from 12:30. Well, I guess it'll be from 11:30 your time on Wednesday, like 11:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. on Thursday. And hoping to stay awake the entire time, but we'll see. Yeah, because you're in the future. Yup. And it's like the way that the stream starts is kind of odd because no one really knows Mountain Standard Time. Everyone knows Pacific, so you say Pacific. But to me, it's actually, I'm literally just starting my day. Sleep stream. Yeah, pretty much. But we'll see. I'm usually pretty good at, you know, going hard like that. We just got to find some... There are so many things that we have planned. We have like 12 or 13 different things that we're going to be doing throughout the day. Including a house tour. At some point in time. Because I got it all set up, and I can do it through the Wi-Fi with the Droid app on my phone, and turn my phone into a webcam for the stream. So I can literally, and use it as my mic as well, so I could just like, literally do a tour of the house. Because I think that'd be really cool. Tuvik's ending pissed me off. They could have used random chemicals to account for the original crew members and had all 3 survive instead of ending Tuvik's. But that would just create an entirely new character. And it wouldn't coincide with like the moral dilemmas that are always placed. Like, for instance, when the Doctor creates the Kardashian scientist who genocided all of those people, and then he winds up deleting the guy in the end. For ethical reasons. It's like sometimes you get the ethical outcome, sometimes you don't get the ethical outcome. I think that throws a wrench in the whole thing of Star Trek, which makes it really good. That'll be neat. Hope you have a great evening. I'm going to bed. Good night, buddy. Night, Sean. Take care, good sir. Hope you have a great sleep. Thanks for the subscribe, and thanks for coming in and hanging out and just chatting. So yeah, take care, bro. Always good to see you. So the new characters that we throw in are not very important characters. You don't see them very much. They're basically NPCs. Other than Gaia, you're welcome. Always a pleasure to see you too. Hell yeah, buddy. It's what lifetime friendships are for, right?
Series book, rather than expanding to a bigger character stable. The 7th mistake that some authors make when writing a series is afraid to jump
Yeah,
time.
I'm so afraid to jump
When I look
time!
through a number of series that are out there, there are a lot of series
Because
that
everything's in first person from Husai, so it seems odd to do things out of place. NPC, non-plot character. True, Sean. But even then, they technically are only there to facilitate plot. Like, the octopi at the bottom of the ocean are only there to facilitate the understanding that there used to be octopi on the bottom of the ocean, and the ones up top are genetically engineered, so are the species up top, other than the beastmen. And that shows you the difference in why the beastmen are the only ones outside of the tree, and why avians, insectoids, and octopi are inside of the tree, because they're not native to the landscape. I mean, I really want to try to do this. I just don't know how
Pretty
well I
significant
can do
jumps
it.
in both time and switching up of the central characters. I mean, just look at the Narnia series. The gap between The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Prince Caspian, it's only 1 year in our world, but it's 1,300 years in the Narnian world. So it's not just a time jump, it also involves a huge change of characters as well. Or the gap between The Voyage of the Dawn Treader to The Silver Chair, it's about a 70-year time gap. So once again, not just a time gap, but also character changes. Or look at the series Foundation. The jump between Foundation and Empire is about 300 years.
Yeah.
Although Foundation covers like 200 years, so really it's like 100 years, but still.
Foundation, if you haven't watched Foundation, guys, Foundation, as far as I'm concerned, right now, is the peak of all sci-fi. It is so fucking good. And I don't remember the fucking actor's name, but he's fucking amazing. Jared Harris. He's so fucking good in it. I think there's 3 seasons now? Yeah, 3 seasons. The 4th season should be coming out. So it's expected, but it hasn't been actually announced that there's a 4th season. I assume there'll be a 4th season. It's so fucking good. I don't see why they wouldn't do it. And the setup at the end of the 3rd season with everything with Dawn, oh my god, it's so fucking good.
Between books in a series. And then Foundation's Edge takes place 500 years after the original trilogy. Or if you look at Dune, the gap between Children of Dune and God Emperor of Dune is 3,500 years. And then Heretics of Dune is 1,500 years later. So obviously this works really well when you're writing fantasy or sci-fi, but I'd argue you could also use it for historical fiction. You could also use it for dystopian fiction. There's a lot of fiction out there when you're writing a series where a big time jump, don't be afraid of it. It's okay to do. There's lots of justification for why it's a good reason to do it. And now it's time for the last and final reason why your book series might fail after book 1, and it is number 8. Trying to write a single
book rather than a series. That's my problem.
book rather than a series. I have authors come to me all the time and they're like, hey, I have a 300,000 word novel. Will you edit it for me? And I have to tell them right away, like, okay, I don't think you have a 300,000 word novel. I think you have a trilogy that you need to split into 3 books. And this is for a few reasons. One, it is incredibly more difficult to publish a longer book. You will lose money because of printing costs. You will lose money because of editing costs. So the amount that you can sell that book for is equal to what you could sell a 70,000 word book for. When you write a 300,000 word book, you're basically giving away 2 books for free and only charging for a single book. The advantage of splitting a big book into a series instead is that it's less intimidating for the reader. They don't have to say like, oh, let me read a book. They can just say like, oh, let me check out this first book in the series. If I like it, I'll continue reading. Picking the stopping points for your series, picking the places where a book ends and where the next book begins is probably one of the most important tasks that you have when you're writing a book series. And yes, I know length is often dependent upon the genre you're writing. Some genres definitely ask for much longer books, but the shorter you can make each book in the series, the more easier it will be to control your narrative and to pick the right points to stop at and pick the right points to begin again. Okay, do not forget to check out the link below to Bookfox Academy. And as you are writing all of your wonderful, brilliant book series, I wish you the best of luck.
Hell yeah. All right. This is Bookfox. Go give them a view, give them a like. Go give them a comment, some support, all that good stuff. He is our main source at the moment for this editing stuff. And eventually we'll go back to Hello Future Me for world building and on writing.